one of the interesting aspects of all of this, Sakina, is South Africa as a brand.
Indeed, Leanne, and you know how we have been portrayed, and of course, Brand SA, the custodian of making sure that image is beamed to the world as positively as we can. And down on the floor, that shot that you see there, somewhere down there is Sherwin Bryce-Pease, and he's standing by with the CEO of Brand SA. Sherwin, we can't quite pick you up from our screen here, but we know you there.
Well, I'm over your right shoulder, Sakina, so if you just look this way, you'll see me. Hi, good morning, Sakina and Leanne. Over your left shoulder, a little bit more, Leanne. No, you're waving at you. There you go. Good morning. Good morning, and good morning to our viewers. Happy Sunday to you on the floor here of the Nasrec Expo Centre. Of course, the final day of South Africa's G20 Leaders Summit this weekend. Of course, not the climate we're going to talk about, but the climax of this moment. But as they correctly point out, when you talk about crossing your T's and dotting your I's, there's an element of branding that is at play here. And given the all-hands-on-deck government approach here, part of this conversation has to do with what the image of South Africa's presidency looks like, what it looks like to the rest of the world. How are the visitors and the guests to South Africa feeling about this moment? And the man leading this process is Neville Mikey, the CEO of Brand South Africa, who joins me now. Neville, we saw you working very hard on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York this year, hosting events, pushing the narrative around South Africa's G20. We saw the leaders' outcome document adopted by consensus earlier, a big victory for South Africa. How are you feeling about the work that has gone into this event from a branding perspective?
It's been absolutely incredible. As you say, it's been all hands on deck from the time the president took over the presidency last year in Brazil. He has actually made it absolutely clear that the focus is on South Africa and the African continent, and we've got to be absolutely clear in terms of that. What it did, it positioned South Africa globally as a leader again, and it's been even more opportune amidst the geopolitics that South Africa has really pulled it off, as was expected. We have the ability, we have the confidence, and from a Brand South Africa perspective, it has really done wonders for us. There's been numerous engagements with our international partners who have really said, congratulations, South Africa, you've really done us proud. They know what South Africa is capable of, and they know the ability of South Africa. From an investor perspective, investor confidence has been absolutely remarkable. Lots of discussions. The Presidential Investment Conference is coming up, the World Economic Forum. We're preparing for all that. South Africa is chairing the SADC Commission. So all those are the next activities. So there's no full stop, Sherwin. There's no full stop. We continue flying the flag. We continue promoting South Africa and ensuring that South Africa is known to be the leader.
I mean, there's been some good news of late, right? The success of this G20 comes after South Africa was removed from the grey list, right? South Africa's credit rating, sovereign debt rating was upgraded by S&P. The trajectory feels like it's shifting. I mean, is that part of what you're doing in the background?
Absolutely. It's all hands on deck. You know, not only Brand South Africa, but other entities of state as well as government departments. But from a Brand South Africa perspective, most certainly we've done a lot of international events this year, even more, as you would know, in preparation for the G20, flying the flag. The minister announced the tourism numbers. They're up, by over 1.1 million, close to 7.6 million international tourists that have come through. And if you look at those numbers, every region is a plus. With the Middle East being 58%, the Americas being about 30%, all these are big pluses for South Africa to show that confidence really still exists and remains for South Africa.
Let me ask you a final question. The United States has been a spanner in the works. I talk about the elephant in the room, or in this case, the elephant that is not in the room. I wonder how the narrative and the rhetoric you've heard from the President of the United States affected a job like yours, your image of the country, right? A country accused of misdiagnosed as having a genocide against white Afrikaners in this country, misdiagnosed as invading land, private property. Where you sit from a branding perspective, I mean, that's a message that goes around the world. How do you react, respond? I mean, do you have sleepless nights about commentary like that?
From a branding perspective, obviously, initially there were panic stations. And of course, in engaging with our global partners, particularly in the USA, global South Africans who are in the US, friends of South Africa, the message has been quite the opposite from the community. Everyone knows the truth about South Africa. Everyone knows what South Africa stands for, the protection of human rights, and where we come from as South Africa, from apartheid to where we are. The whole process of reconciliation has been quite clear. Those principles have remained in South Africa. So the fake news and the disinformation, unfortunately, it kills itself. Because the narrative globally, when we're in Europe, we've just done a big mission now with President Ramaphosa into the ASEAN region. Very positive on South Africa. Everyone knows the truth. That is why the nations are here. They're here to support South Africa and, of course, the G20 knowing the real truth about South Africa.
I see you're hosting a media party, thank you party later. What's on the menu?
Watch the space.
Neville, good to see you. Thanks so much for starting.
So the reason we're hosting that party is really just to say thank you to the international media that's here, as well as our domestic media, because a lot of this, the messaging goes out. These are South African stories that we wanted to tell, and you've been assisting us to do that. Thank you.
And you're welcome. Neville Mikey, CEO of Brand South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Neville Mikey speaking to us here on the floor of the NASREC Expo Center. And just to give you an update on what's coming ahead today, of course, it is the closing session of the G20 under South Africa's presidency. And they are in session 3 today, in closed session, a chat about a fair and just future for all critical minerals, decent work, artificial intelligence. There'll be a presentation on the recommendations from the G20 at 20, a review of the G20 over the last 20 years. And then on the program, it says the adoption of the Leaders Summit, but we of course know that that happened yesterday. South Africa will also be engaging in some bilaterals with India and Brazil under the bloc IPSA. So what's common among that thread are the tariffs that have been imposed on all 3 countries by the United States, 50% on Brazil, 30% on South Africa. I think India's up there in between the two. So one wonders what will come out of that. And then, of course, you know, the critical minerals discussion, very, very important in terms of how, you know, the thread from critical minerals, Leanne and Sakina, to decent work, to artificial intelligence, it's all connected. And then very finally, before I hand back to you, I want to quickly read to you the concluding paragraphs of the Leaders' Declaration. And I want you to continue that discussion, possibly with Sophie Mokoena, who's joining you in studio. Let me quickly read you this. In the conclusion, we reiterate our commitment to the G20 and as the premier forum for international cooperation and its continued operation in the spirit of multilateralism on the basis of consensus, with all members participating on an equal footing in all events, including summits in accordance with international obligations. Gosh, I wonder who they're talking about. Then they say, we thank South Africa for its leadership this year. We commit to working together under the United States presidency in 2026 and meeting again in the United Kingdom in 2027 and in the Republic of Korea in 2028. We welcome Saudi Arabia's ambition to advance its turn for hosting the G20 presidency in the next cycle. So curiously, it doesn't say we look forward to meeting in the United States. It just basically says we commit to working together under the presidency of the US, but meeting again in the United Kingdom in 2027 and then South Korea. I wonder why that specific language is what all the leaders agreed by consensus to adopt. Certainly, I think, sending a very clear message to the United States that we're watching. We're not sure where this is going to go, but we certainly look forward to meeting around the next cycle in the UK and what follows that. So very interesting language there, Leanne and Sakina.
Well, it certainly is. Thanks so much, Sherwin.